Well, what do you think?
Wow! Greetings! It has been 2 long years since the EcoFlow Wave 2 portable battery-powered air conditioner hit the market and basically changed the game in the camping AC market. Now there are many competing models out there claiming to be the best bang for the buck, including the new EcoFlow Wave version 3. Is this new and improved AC the best battery-powered portable out there? Let's find out.
HOBOTECH.
Okay, so what's in the box? So whether or not you buy the AC with the battery, you do get the included AC power adapter cable, so you can power this air conditioner from AC power, generator, inverter, whatever. If you buy it with a battery, you get this 12-volt car port to XT60 adapter. It comes with this little plastic thing that clips onto the back. You can wrap your cable around. It comes with this top part unit, which you can clip on there. And you can mount one of the hoses, which I'll show you in a moment, and this will go into your tent or vehicle. Comes with a nice long drainage hose, so you plug this into the back, you can push a button and it will drain the water. You get a template, so if you want to make your own, this is a cardboard template it comes with. And so if you need to know, the large hole is 6 inches, the small hole is 5 inches. As you're going to see soon in my testing, instead of using this to make my own template, I use the foam template they gave me last year with the Wave 2. I like that one a lot better. I wish they would have included in this, but for some reason you get a cardboard one. You also get, and this is new for the Wave 3, insulated hoses. So yes, these are stretchy hoses that clip on to the air conditioner, but now they have a foil-lined insulation inside, which transmits less heat through the hose. So this hose would clip up here, and this is the exhaust hose. And the larger hose is the intake hose, and that would clip onto the back. So this screen comes off right here, this clips right on, and this is the intake that goes outside. So this hose goes outside, and this hose on top goes outside. You'll see how I have this hooked up shortly. These hoses do fit inside of each other for easy storage, and that's everything you get. I do want to note that this does have a USB-C and a regular USB power port on the battery itself, and the battery itself this time has the XT60 connector. Wave 2, the battery connector was up here. Now it's down here on the battery itself, which obviously makes a lot more sense because you couldn't charge the battery separately without the unit. Now you can. That's a big deal if you have multiple batteries, including a Wave 2. Wave 2 battery will work with the Wave 3. I confirmed that with EcoFlow. And they also give you a pair of these silly stickers that say, "Don't worry, my air conditioning is on," for all those people that like to call the cops on you. So what's new for the Wave 3? Let's compare the outgoing Wave 2 model, which is no longer for sale, with this new version. The Wave 3 now packs 6,100 BTUs of cooling power, 1,000 more than the outgoing model, and 6,800 BTUs of heating power, or 700 more than the previous model. It also blows harder at 330 cubic meters per hour versus 290 from the old model. Yes, fellas, rejoice. Believe it or not, the Wave 3 has a slightly smaller 1,024 watt-hour battery than the old version, but the big difference, and I mean this is a major upgrade, folks, is that this is a lithium iron phosphate battery, finally. So while that means this battery is a few pounds heavier than the outgoing model at 21 pounds versus 17 pounds, it'll last 4,000 cycles instead of just 800 cycles of the old NMC battery. There's also a near zero chance of a lithium battery fire, as LFP doesn't suffer from thermal runaway. Get this though, even though the compressor is larger and the battery is smaller, it still offers the same 8-hour runtime on eco mode as the outgoing model. That goes to show how much they've improved the efficiency of the compressor over the last 2 years. It's also a little bit quieter on max mode than the outgoing model. A lot less rattles and weird noises coming out too. Overall, the new model is just a couple of pounds heavier at 34 pounds, but you have to expect that since it packs a larger compressor. So combined with the battery attached, it weighs around 55 pounds. And with its small footprint, and it has a built-in handle in front and built-in handle in the back, I had no problems lifting it up onto this table or putting it on my RV countertop. There are loads of new features too. It now offers a dehumidify mode and an auto mode, that will either heat or cool automatically depending on the fixed temperature. They fix the water drainage issues so it no longer spills water everywhere in humid climates. Now you can dump it with the push of a button and be notified in the app when it's full, or just leave it on automatic to drain automatic. In dry climates like where I live, the water evaporates itself over time like a modern window unit does, so I never need to use the dump feature, nor can I even demo it this time of year when the humidity is only 20%. There is a new pet care mode that will turn on the AC automatically even if it is powered off if the ambient temperature gets too high. And probably the most important new feature, the battery now has both an XT150 battery port for charging and a built-in 400 watt 11 to 60 volt XT60i input for direct solar charging, third-party battery charging, or using EcoFlow's new 500 watt alternator charger. I'm going to demo all these charging methods shortly. Anyway, enough blabbering, let's get on with the testing. And there is a lot to cover. I literally filmed for like 2 or 3 hours, and I'm trying to parse it down as much as I can to keep this video as short as possible, but I still want to cover all the bases because you're going to be spending a lot of money on this product. And I want you to be totally informed before you spend $1 on it. Note that EcoFlow told me to use the beta app and to update the firmware before testing, which I did. The following testing was performed with the latest firmware as of April 20th, 2025. And of course, we took the Wave 3 here into my secret laboratory where we performed all kinds of crazy experiments on it. Okay, so I got the new Wave 3 hooked up to my window, and I am heating and cooling just this space. This room, I'll show you, I'll do a little spin around. It's about 180 square feet. It is very well insulated. It has 2 double pane windows, and it has a 6-inch concrete floor. So this is a best case scenario insulated space. Like if you have a room that's this size with some mass in it, I got a lot of lithium batteries and thing in here. It's a lot of mass. I've been heating this all night long. I had it set on 76 degrees overnight, and then within the last 30 minutes, I put it on max mode to see how hot the air would get coming out of this, because we have temperatures dropping quickly and we're now down to 39 degrees. So this is the temperature outside right now, 39 degrees. It's getting to the point where this isn't going to work anymore, and I wanted to see how low can we go and still get hot air coming out. Now right now it's still blowing really hot air. Let's see how hot. Okay, so we're blowing 108 degree Fahrenheit heat out of the output right now. That's good. This room is hot. Let me go check my temperature over and see how hot it is. Over here on the other side of the room, it is 77 degrees even, 21% relative humidity. This room is never this hot. I usually have it about 64. Yeah, it's actually uncomfortably hot in this room, especially wearing this. Let me just give you a little spin around to show you how big this room is. So let's get here about in the middle. Here's me. So you can see it's not a very big room. Like I said, about 180 square feet. We got 7-foot ceilings. I have R19, I think it is, in the walls. But this room is well insulated. Like I said, it has a concrete floor and 2 double pane windows. So this new Wave 3 actually has more output than the Wave 2. It's a higher BTU. And I can tell it's a higher BTU because this thing really pumps out a lot of heat and a lot of air conditioning compared to the last one. Something else I've noticed is that this is running on maximum full blast heat. Now I'm going to test the air conditioning as well. This is way quieter than the old one. Let's test the decibels from a meter away. So it looks like we're getting right around 59 decibels with the heat blasting on max from a meter away. It sounds less jittery like the old one. It sounded like there were marbles inside of it sometimes. I think they improved the compressor in this. It definitely sounds like a regular wall air conditioner now and not like some loud appliance. Now something else that's different about the Wave 3 is they include insulated hoses finally. On the old version, it was these cheap thin plastic things that they would either give off heat or cold strongly depending on how ambient temperature and how much you're running the thing. These are significantly more insulated. They got foil insulated on the inside and a thicker plastic on the outside. Now I am running in hot, so these tubes should be cold. Let's see how cold. The intake hose is 57 degrees. The output is 48 degrees. So it is still heating at 39 degrees. Okay, we're now down to 36 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's still outputting heat. We're still getting 108 degrees. We're gonna keep checking every couple degrees till this thing finally quits heating. We'll find out exactly what magical temperature that is. Okay, here's an update. It's actually snowing outside, no joke. Outdoor temperature is about 31 degrees, and we're still definitely blowing hot air. So amazingly, even though this thing's not supposed to heat below freezing, it is. It's now doing 99 degree output. So it has went down about 10 degrees, but it's still outputting air plenty warm enough to keep this room warm. In this room, it's a ridiculous 79 degrees. So this thing is still cranking out the heat. Okay, it's now almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Our forecasted 1 inch of snow has become 6 to 7. For Easter, we have a half a foot or more of snow. We finally hit the limit. At 30 degrees outside, this finally stopped blowing hot air. Now it's kicking on and off. Now it's blowing hot air again. Just a couple of minutes ago, it was blowing cold. The compressor keeps turning on and off at this point because it's sucking in too much cold air. And actually, I'm kind of surprised because in the manual it says below 41 degrees, this thing should not be heating at all. We're down to 30. Now, this temperature gauge is out in the middle of my property where I just showed you the snow. That's where the temperature gauge is. It is not by this window. Now, I do have a temperature gauge on this building. It was reading 28.9 degrees, which is pretty close within the margin of error. You see it just shut off. Just while I was talking, it shut off. So it just completely shut off because it's sucking in air that's too cold for it to work. This is no longer going to keep you warm below 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So keep that in mind. However, that's much better than 40 degrees is what it says in the manual. And this is actually a lot better than the Wave 2. The Wave 2 really does stop warming in the upper 30s. I think maybe the more powerful compressor or however they design this, it can actually provide heat down to freezing, which is pretty good. Now, that's not going to do me any good in a place like this where I live because it gets down to 0, 10 degrees. But if you're camping, normal camping situation, normal camping temperatures, as long as it doesn't go below that 30 degrees at night, you should be good to go. Okay, fast forward a couple of days, the snow's all gone, and it is 80 degrees. 81 in fact, and the current room temperature is 77 degrees. Now if you hear a hum in the microphone, it's because my inverter right now is charging from solar. So what we're going to do is we're going to unplug this from the wall. The battery is fully charged. I have the window closed, insulated. I'm going to close this door as soon as I leave, cordon off this room. Now the inverter is going to put a little bit of heat off, but I think this is a pretty good test. Now it's not going to be good enough for some of you because some of you are like, well, it's not 90 degrees outside. Well, we almost never hit 90 degrees up here in the Arizona mountains. This is as best as I can get. This video has to be out at the end of this week. I only got 2 days of nice warm weather to work on it. So today is going to be the indoor test. Tomorrow, when it's going to be even warmer outside, we're going to do the outdoor test to put this in an RV and see how it cools in an RV. We already know how it heats. Now we need to figure out its number one function, and that is air conditioning. So let's go ahead and start this thing up on battery only, and we'll let it go until the battery dies and see how much it cools the room down. We'll just make it that simple of a test. However long the battery lasts on maximum, how much will cool down this room. And we're going to put it on cooling, and then maximum. So it's going to try to cool this room as much as it possibly can. You can see over here the time's starting to adjust. That's going to start ticking down as the compressor ramps up. Okay, inside the beta app, we see it's set at 60 degrees, 100% battery. It says currently using 340 watts. I'm sure that will ramp up. It says the temperature coming through is 80 degrees. Oh, there it is. If you click on battery, it will give you the runtime, which is currently 3.5 hours. That sounds about right. That sounds about how long the battery's probably going to run with this on maximum. Let's come back and find out. Okay, it died at 4:20. That's pretty funny. So it made it just about 2.5 hours. The room has cooled to 73 degrees. This is actually outputting a little bit of heat because we're running power right now. So there you have it, 2.5 hours on max, and it did lower the temperature in the room by 4 degrees, but it did a good job. It is now actually quite comfortable in here. Okay, so I decided to go ahead and just plug in the AC directly and disconnect the battery because I'm going to do a test to see how much AC power it pulls directly from the wall. It does come with an included cable that lets you plug it into the wall. I want to let you know it does pull 3 watts from the wall all the time, even if it is turned off. You see right now it's turned off, no screen, nothing's turned on. It's pulling 3 watts. So just be aware of that if you leave it plugged in all the time without the battery. Okay, so I'm going to put it on max air conditioning mode and let it get up to speed, and then we're going to see how much power does it pull from the wall. Okay, I've been cranking this on maximum for about 15 minutes. It's pulling 465 watts from the wall, and the app says it's pulling 425. Looks like it wastes about 40 watts when you have it plugged in directly to AC power instead of using DC power, which is what we're going to test next. Okay, I now have the Wave 3 plugged into DC power, that's DC direct cable, to this older Delta 2 through the cable import on the side. Now this is DC to DC, no more AC charging. You can see it is pulling 420 plus watts. And on the app it says the exact same thing, 420 plus watts. So it is definitely more efficient on DC power. Okay, we're going to switch this now to heat on max mode, and we'll see how much power it takes for heating. Okay, it's been several minutes. Let's see how much power it's using on heating mode. So it's using much more power, 593 watts from DC, and that's verified with the app, 593 watts. And this is on maximum power. So let's go ahead and switch over to the wall. Okay, here's the result. This is like watching paint dry, 632 watts. So again, it's about a 40 watt difference between running AC and DC. Okay, I want to show you something. I have it plugged into the wall and plugged into the DC cord simultaneously. And I have this Delta 3 battery hooked up. Now, that's just the battery, no power station. And it is charging from the wall through the air conditioner. So yes, you can use any of the EcoFlow batteries that has this battery plug on it. So if your EcoFlow product has this battery port, you can run this air conditioner off it. I'm going to go so far as to pull the AC power. It continues to run just fine, and now it's running off this battery. So yes, independent battery, no solar generator. As long as it's EcoFlow, it will power it directly. So let me make it absolutely clear, because last year when I did the Wave 2, a lot of folks were like, well, can I plug my EcoFlow whatever in? Can I power with my EcoFlow whatever? If you have an EcoFlow product with the battery port on it, you can power the Wave 3 air conditioner heater directly with DC. You can't use a third-party battery. Now, I'm going to show you how you can use a third-party battery, but you still have to buy the battery with the air conditioner for that to work. If you don't want to buy the air conditioner with the battery, you want to save some money, and you already have an EcoFlow battery or solar generator that has that battery port on it, you don't need the battery that comes with the air conditioner. I'll say it again, you don't need the battery that comes with the air conditioner if you own an EcoFlow battery or solar generator with the battery port on it, because this will substitute for the built-in battery. So hopefully that's clear enough. Okay, on max cool mode from a meter away, slightly quieter at around 58 decibels. Okay, I'm going to bump this thing down to eco mode, and then we'll do a sound pressure test to see how loud it is on eco once it ramps back down to quiet. At 50 decibels, that is significantly quieter. It's much more pleasant to listen to. All right, I've let this run on eco mode for about a half an hour just to make sure it was using the maximum amount of power. And it uses 180 watts on eco mode. That's eco air conditioning mode, 180 watts. Okay, I just killed the battery in the Wave 3 completely dead to the point where it shut off because I'm going to do an experiment. Now, a very cool thing about the app is it tells you the power coming in from the wall, the power coming in from solar, the power the machine's using, and the power coming from or to the Wave battery. So with this little four-way chart, we can tell exactly what's going on here, and I'll be able to do a couple of real-life scenarios using this variable voltage charger. Now, for this scenario, I want you to pretend that this is solar or a battery. It works exactly the same. So I don't have to hook up a solar panel and show you. I don't have to hook up a battery and show you. I'll explain as we go each voltage, what it stands for, and what scenario that would be used for. So first, let's turn the thing on because it's dead. It's not going to power up until I give it some power. It's not mentioned anywhere in the paperwork for the Wave what the voltage range is, but in the paperwork for the battery, since the XT60 input for the solar is connected to the battery, it says it can take 400 watts of solar or battery power from 11 to 60 volts. So we're going to start at 12 volts, which is going to be the lowest you're ever going to want to try to charge this thing from. In fact, it would be 12.6 or closer to 13 volts from a vehicle. So 13 volts, it has a maximum of 13 amps input. So right now we are putting in 13 volts from a battery and or solar panel 13 amps. Let's see what the battery is charging at right now. So you can see right there, the battery is charging at 150 watts. Now if I click on the little lightning bolt at the top, it says from a 12 volt car battery or low-end solar panel charge, it's going to take 12 hours. You can see here, 12 hours to charge from 12 volts. Okay, let's bump that up to 24 volts. Now this is if you're in a semi, or you have a 24 volt battery, or a somewhat large 300 watt, 200 to 300 watt solar panel. So any one of those three scenarios is going to output about 24, 25 watts. Generally be 25 watts would be closer to accurate. Now that drops the charge time significantly. So now you're talking a much more realistic 3 hours, 45 minutes to charge the battery. Now this is just the charge rates for the battery alone without the air conditioner running. So say you're not going to run the air conditioner today, you want to just know how long it's going to take to charge from these sources. So let's take it up to 48 volts. That's going to be the next step. So if you have a couple of solar panels in series, say 500 or 600 watts of solar panels at 8 amps, which is going to be the maximum at 48 volts, you've now dropped the time to charge even faster. You're now down to 2 hours, 40 minutes. So you see, as you bring up the voltage, it's going to charge way faster. So the maximum is 60 volts. Now 60 volts is not going to change because we've already hit the maximum capacity of the charging. And that maximum charge rate is 400 watts. So you can see here we're charging at 400 watts. That's the maximum. So it doesn't matter how many volts, how many amps you put in. Doesn't matter how big your solar panels are. 400 watts is the maximum charge rate for this battery. Can you run the air conditioner while you're charging the battery at these voltages? Because that's going to be a lot more difficult because this thing does take anywhere from, we saw, 200 watts to 600 watts. Now for this demonstration, I'm going to use eco mode because that is what EcoFlow suggests. They say use eco mode to save the most amount of battery power. It'll still cool the area, but use the least amount of power. So that's what we want to do. We want to try to charge the battery and run the air conditioner at the same time. So the million-dollar question is going to be, can this air conditioner run directly from 12 volts? Can you plug this into the cigarette lighter in your vehicle and power the air conditioner? Now, I know a lot of other competing brands with lower BTUs can do this, but EcoFlow, I believe, is the first one to have an over 6,000 BTU air conditioner that does run directly from 12 volts. Now, when I say directly, you have to have the add-on battery. You can't plug anything into the air conditioner except for an EcoFlow battery or AC power. If you want to plug your vehicle in, you have to use the cable that comes with it. So this is an XT60i to a cigarette lighter car accessory socket. You plug this into your car, you plug this into the battery, not the air conditioner like the Wave 2. You plug it into the battery, and at 12 volts, it will run in eco mode. Eco mode. Let's bump it up to 12 volts. So here in the app, you see the solar here on this side, which is what I've plugged in right now, solar or battery. This is the battery that's in the EcoFlow air conditioner. We have no grid power, and this is the power that it's currently using to cool. So you can see it is pulling a few watts from the battery, but most of the power is coming directly from the solar and or external battery input. When I say solar and or external battery, I mean the XT60 cable that plugs into the battery. You can plug solar into that or a battery. Now, how many volts does it take at the 13 amp maximum of this air conditioner for it to run evenly without discharging or recharging the battery? Well, we know it's not going to be 12 volts. I'm guessing it's going to be close to 14. Okay, so I figured this out. In order to do a break even, that means as much power going into the air conditioner that's coming out without charging or discharging the battery requires 15 volts at 13.3 amps. So you technically can't run it indefinitely from a 12 volt vehicle, even if it's running, but you're going to get really darn close. Let's do 14.4. Most vehicles, when their engine is running, charging at 14.4 volts. That's what I have this set at right now. We're only losing 5 watts from the battery. So if you have any charge in the battery at all, it's going to last you a very long time, and you can still run it from your 12 volt cigarette lighter socket. So exactly how long, the app will tell us. So with a 3% charge of the battery, it's going to last 64 hours. Yes, that's because it's only using 5 watts out of that battery to keep running. So as long as you have some charge in this battery, you can absolutely run this indefinitely off of 14.4 volts or a running engine in most vehicles. Everyone's going to flock to buy these because now you can finally run the EcoFlow from a running car at 12 volts. Okay, now say you want to get ahead of the game, you want to charge the battery while you're running the air conditioner. So it's a hot day, you're in your vehicle, you don't want to run the engine, but you're going to have a solar panel outside on your hood or your roof or whatever. How many watts does it take to put some into the battery and have it charged by the end of the day? So let's take it up to 24 volts. So if you have a 24 volt battery or a larger, say 300 watt solar panel. Okay, now we have 300 watts coming in, 120 going to the battery. That's more like it. So you can see here, we're still consuming about 180 watts. We got 300 coming in from our solar and 120 going into the battery. So the battery for the air conditioner is being charged. Now at the rate of 120 watts, it's gonna take about 8 hours to charge the air conditioner battery. Yeah, on a summer day, you get 8 hours of sun. You could, if you have a 300 watt panel or 400 watt panel facing the sun for 8 hours, you can not only run the air conditioner and keep yourself cool, but you can top up the battery at the same time. Now let's go for a better case scenario where you have multiple solar panels in series for 48 volts or a 48 volt battery. Now I know a lot of you in RVs and van builds are running 48 volt systems. That is very efficient. You're going to be able to really charge this thing up quickly if you plug it into 48 volts. Also, if you run a couple of 200 or 300 watt panels in series, you're also going to get closer to 50-60 volts, which will give you the maximum 400 watts. So right now we have the solar and or battery input maxed at 400 watts. Let's see how much is going in. All right, at 48 volts in eco mode, you're putting 225 watts into the battery, running 170 on the air conditioner with 400 coming in, which is the solar max. And in this scenario, it's only going to take 4 hours to charge the battery. You can do that in the middle of winter if you wanted to, as long as you have at least 400 watts of solar. There's the proof, 4 hours to charge the batteries. Now I know you're going to ask me, how cold is the air coming out of the air conditioner at 170 watts? It can't be that cold. No, it's not really that cold, but it's enough if you're sleeping or you just need to take the edge off. I did switch this to output temperature. It is only outputting right now 68, but it was doing 62 before it shut off. But I want to show you that the internal temperature is pretty dang accurate, 67 degrees. That's pretty close to what it says right there. So it is blowing cooler air. The current temperature in the room is almost 77 degrees. So it is dropping the temperature 10 degrees coming out. Like I said, I know this, you can see it's still going down. It just turned back on. So now that I've babbled on for 6 additional minutes, let's check the output temperature and see it should actually be better than it was. And it is now 60 degrees. You can see right there, the output temperature in eco mode is now 60. So in eco mode, you can expect a 15 degree drop in ambient air temperature. So if the outside is 75, you should be able to get this close to 60 coming out. So that's pretty good for only burning 170 watts of power. This thing is a lot more efficient than the Wave 2. Okay, here it is the next day, peak solar. So we're around noon. It's about 80 degrees outside. It's a little bit warmer than that in here. 82 degrees in here, 30% humidity. I have the Wave 3 hooked up to my window. It's not the most airtight thing in the world, but this test is only gonna be a couple of hours. I'm in a Class B, 24 foot. So this is kind of a small RV, but it does have slides, so it does leak quite a bit of air. I do have the front windows blacked out with covers. The side windows open for a little bit of light. I mean, the shade's open. And so it's gonna try to cool this entire space in a matter of a few hours. So we're starting at 82, which would be too hot for me to sleep. So say I wanted to actually sleep in the middle of the day for some reason, how cold could I get this on one battery? That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna see how many degrees can we drop this RV with one battery. That one battery is 1 kilowatt hour. It's a little bit less than one 100 amp hour battery. And that'll give you an idea of how many amp hours do you need to cool your RV down to a temperature that you consider comfortable? I'm gonna put this on max, and then I'm gonna close everything up and leave and monitor it with my phone from a distance and see when the battery dies, come back in, check the temperature. It's gonna be that simple. So there are the hoses hooked up to the window. Got a little extra foam in there just to keep the breeze from coming in. I don't have it airtight. If I was gonna do this camping, I'd probably use some duct tape or something to hold everything in. And I'm gonna go ahead and set it to max mode. Max mode, lowest temperature. We'll just come back when the battery's dead and see what kind of temperature. You can see right there, it says 82 degrees. That's the temperature inside right now. Okay, here we are an hour into the experiment. So We were about 50% through the battery, 1 hour. It says it's 75 degrees in here. This over here says it's 78. So you can see that there it says it's 78. And I do have that little thermometer over here on the table opposite of the air conditioner, so it's not blowing right on it. I'm not cheating the test. We dropped 4 degrees in the first hour with this on max. Hopefully we'll knock this down a couple more degrees. Now, FYI, it's actually gotten hotter outside. You also have to remember that this RV is getting beat by the sun right now. It is very sunny, blue skies, about 83 degrees. So when you're in a direct sunlight in an RV, even when you have the windows blocked, it's kind of hard to keep it cool. But 4 degrees is a pretty good start. So let's come back in an hour when this battery's dead and see what the final result is. Okay, just as I was ready to hit the button, this died. So about 2 hours, 15 minutes. Let's see what the final temperature is here in the RV. Final temperature, you can see that says 78 degrees. So that was after running about 2 hours, 15 minutes on max. So it dropped the temperature 4 degrees and kept it dropped. That was a real world test in a real RV. This has the typical thin insulation in the walls, single pane windows. One of the things I noticed was over here where these hoses are, it was actually quite hot, 99 degrees. This actually isn't the best setup. It would be best to put this outside and just run the hose into the window if possible. Now, if I was smart about this, what I would have done was not use the bottom hose at all. Push this thing up against the open window, stick this hose out, and then that way all this hose heat wouldn't come back in, because this hose is quite warm, and this was giving off a lot of heat. I was standing over here checking out my horrible ceiling job over here, and I realized this heat was just hitting me in the face. So this was basically heating the RV back up while the air conditioner was trying to cool it down. So I'm guessing we probably would have dropped a few more degrees. This video's got to be out in a few days. I don't have time to do this one again, and I have to wait for another hot day. So hopefully this test answers your questions, and there are your results. Okay, so there's one last feature, not really a feature of the air conditioner, but EcoFlow has released a new DC to DC 500 watt charger. So you can plug it into a battery, into the 500 watt DC to DC charger. So it takes the 12 volts from the battery, converts it to 48 volts for the air conditioner. This will do 500 watts, and what it's doing right now is directly charging with this cable right into the battery. So instead of putting a solar panel in, or a cigarette lighter plug, you can get this as an optional extra, and it'll allow you to run this air conditioner pretty much indefinitely off your house batteries. Now, this battery is here just sitting on the counter, but you can imagine with all this slack, you could hook it up to your house batteries, which I have under the stairs. You can connect it directly to those. You can connect it to your starter battery, start the engine, run the air conditioner, basically as long as you have gasoline or diesel. And this is an option. This is probably how I would opt if I was going to take this thing on the road instead of like trying to charge it with a solar panel or charge it with a cigarette lighter. I would just stick this in the cabinet, run this cable to my batteries down there, and then the solar charges my house batteries, which would then run the air conditioner pretty much indefinitely. If you want to disconnect the house batteries, you can do it through the app. The app fully controls it, and you can turn off, there's a physical button here you can press. That will stop the charging, and then you still have whatever's in the battery to finish running your air conditioner. But you can see there, I'm getting 320 watts, 322 watts into the air conditioner right now from my 12.9 volt lithium battery. Now, like I said, it's not fully charged. If I was charging that with the sun, it would be in the 14.4 range, and I'm sure this number would be higher. It could go up to 500. Now, these other options down here do not work with third-party batteries. You have to use an EcoFlow power station or an EcoFlow battery to reverse charge, or do these two options that are grayed out. Right now, I'm obviously using a third-party battery that supports that right out of the box. It also supports all the EcoFlow power stations that have a battery connector on it, so you can battery connect it directly. Since this uses standard XT60, XT60i connector, this will work with virtually any power station on the market that has an XT60 connector. So all the other competition, other brands, you can use the EcoFlow 500 watt. Now, do not confuse this with their 800 watt. They had an 800 watt EcoFlow charger that only worked with EcoFlow power stations. They saw the competition came out with a bunch of 500 watters that work with any power station. They sold like hotcakes. So, of course, EcoFlow, being the smart people they are, they came out with their own modified version of their 800 watt with an XT60 connector that'll work with their entire product line and all the competitors. So yeah, you can hook up your own 12 or 24 volt battery. This does not support 48 volt batteries. It's only 12 or 24 volts. So you have to have a 12 or 24 volt system unless you're plugged into an EcoFlow. If you're plugged into an EcoFlow, it supports the 48 volts that those batteries are. And then you can use this cable to plug in to anything, including this, which has XT60. So it's a win-win-win situation when it comes to the EcoFlow 500 watt charger. Now, if you're interested in this, I will have a link in the description. Okay, I know that was a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and put a summary of all the results up here on screen for your review. Feel free to pause and check it out if you missed anything. So what do I think about the new EcoFlow Wave 3 heat pump, heater, air conditioner, battery powered solar awesomeness? Yes, I actually really like these things. The new model is more powerful, quieter, the build is much better. Gone is the weird rattling and gasping sounds from the previous model. The previous model sounded like it was like vomiting half the time. It would be like whoosh, clunk, clunk, clunk. This one, steady, quiet. It sounds much better built. They definitely changed the compressor, obviously, to make it more powerful, but it's also quieter, just sounds better. It also doesn't spooge all over the floor in anger like an upset puppy when left alone. You get ample warning to drain it manually, or you can just set it to drain automatically. Again, a new feature. I also noticed the old Wave 2 would shut down the compressor a lot when it was on max mode. I don't know why, it would just shut off randomly after a couple hours and turn back on, then shut off. I ran this for several days straight, never once noticed any odd on-off behavior or anything out of the ordinary. It just runs like an air conditioner should. So I think they finally worked out the bugs here. Now, I also noticed it heats down to a much lower temperature than the old version. In the manual, it still says 40 degrees, but I got it to work down to 30. That was very impressive. The old one definitely cut off around 38, 39 degrees. I tried to use it every winter for the past 2 years. Since this one made it down to 30, it makes it much more useful, especially for camping in the desert, where it actually does get that cold sometimes. And this thing in heat mode throws off a lot of heat. I mean, if you're standing next to it, it'll actually make you sweat. It seems to blow much hotter than the old one. I was so pleased with the Wave 3 after my testing it that I do plan to install this one here in my RV on my property so I can keep the RV cool for guests when they stay over. Okay, so there is one thing that still pees me off, and is they didn't fix that heating below freezing issue. Virtually every mini split sold in the world works around this by heating the outside condenser coil when it freezes. Yes, it takes some power, but I think virtually everyone buying this would sacrifice some power to be able to run the heat in sub-freezing conditions. Now, I don't go camping in the snow, but it would be nice to have some guarantee that if I'm in the quartzite desert in January and we get a 27, 28 degree night, I'm not going to be freezing my balls off. When I brought this up to EcoFlow, they said they did extensive market research and came to the conclusion that heating below freezing wasn't an important feature. So, being HOBOTECH, let's do a bit of our own market research. I want you to leave a comment in this video for EcoFlow. Let them know if heating below freezing is important to you. They're going to be reading these comments, and I'm curious how many viewers agree or disagree with their research. Now, as of the filming of this review, I did not receive pricing from EcoFlow. They are seemingly tight-lipped about it for some reason, but I expect it should be around the same price as the outgoing model when it first launched. Of course, when this video posts on launch day, you're going to see pricing with and without the battery. You don't have to leave me a comment, I know. I'm going to tell you now that you definitely want to get it with this battery. If you ever plan to use it off the grid as a unit without the battery, it can only be powered by AC. If you want any of the DC power functions like solar charging, charging from a battery, or charging from their new Alternator Charger, you have to have the battery. If you're only going to use it plugged into the wall or plugged into a generator or plugged into an inverter with AC power, you don't need the battery. It comes with the cable. Plug it in AC like any other air conditioner, it'll just work like any other air conditioner. EcoFlow was kind enough to offer viewers of HOBOTECH a discount code off the normal price. Code and link to the product will be in the description of this video below. I'm also going to put a link here at the bottom of the screen along with a QR code that you can scan if you're watching me on TV. That'll take you on over to the EcoFlow store page where you can check out the solar battery powered heat pump air conditioner Wave 3 from EcoFlow. Thanks for watching, and until next time. Hopefully that wasn't too long for you.
Odin commands you to like and subscribe, and clean my litter box.